Folks, what you're about to see is the completed Philco 37640. This is a Tombstone style radio, shortwave and AM bands, that was manufactured in 1937. And it's had a long and storied life, and prior to John Bachman's acquisition in 2005, I don't really know any of its history. But I do know that he acquired it with the intention of restoring it. Sadly, he never got it finished. He worked on one project after the next. And he's like most guys, he's got, dozens of irons in the fire, if you will, and a lot of projects on his bench. And this was one that he started and never got to finish. So after his passing, his widow actually gave me the radio cabinet without the chassis. We didn't know where the chassis was, and it wasn't found until about a year later. And but my intention was to turn the cabinet into a nice Bluetooth speaker, that would retro themed, of course, 1930s themed. I had never intended to restore it to the extent that I had, because I didn't really have the knowledge I needed to make it happen. And that's where Bob Anderson came in. Once I found the chassis in its complete disassembled state, I reassembled it, and I quickly realized that the skills needed to bring it back to a functioning state were just not in my vocabulary. So Bob was able to take the entire chassis and go through it nut by nut, by bolt, by wire, he went through the entire thing, replacing tube sockets, wiring, capacitors, resistors, switches, grommets. I mean, he just went right through it. And the end result was a fully functioning chassis, as it would have functioned in 1937. Because this particular model featured Philco's faux finish, or photographic finish, I believe they called it, that had been power sanded off by someone, many years ago. We don't know who. I don't think it was John. I think it was the person he got it from. Because the finish had been power sanded off, there was nothing to go by. There was nothing to bring it back. There was nothing to restore. And that's where VintageRadioLabels.com kicked in. I contacted Tony P., who's the gentleman who runs the website and the business, and I had him modify one of his labels or decal kits to fit the 37640, which is a little bit bigger than the 37620. So he made all the necessary changes to the speaker grill, to the overall dimensions, and for $37 shipped it to my house, and I applied it, and I think you guys may have seen the video on how to do that. I made a nice little tutorial on what I did and how. But man, the amount of work that it took to get this thing to what it is today. Would I do it again? Absolutely. Only I do it better, because this is the first radio that I've ever restored, and I'm going to show it to you right now. Here it is. Ain't she beautiful? This radio was designed during the height of the Art Deco movement, and it really shows when in the clean lines of the cabinet, the elaborate patterned finish on the front. This, by the way, as I said, is a faux finish. This is all printed. This particular decal, of course, was done by VintageRadioLabels.com, and they sell these labels or these decals for multiple models. In fact, if they don't have one for your radio, I bet if you contact him, send him some pictures, he could probably make something for you. Does a great job. But the cabinet was probably the most difficult thing I'd ever done. I've never really worked on anything like this before with such thin veneer, and I did have to sand the finish. It was pretty rough. It didn't have the right tone to it. It was too light. It was a very light tone, and I know it didn't belong on this radio. It had to be darker. but I managed to get it all taken care of. It's got several coats of clear lacquer hasn't been buffed or anything. It's just right off the nozzle, if you will. The dial escutcheon is one thing I'm particularly proud of. This was very difficult to restore. I had to strip all the paint and all of the clear lacquer off of it and bring it down to a bare surface, which was just a stamped piece of brass. I then masked off the areas that I didn't want painted, and then I painted what I needed to, and then I had to mask off the painted areas to get the clear on to prevent the paint and the clear from mixing, which actually turned out to be a bit of an issue the first couple of times I tried it. The tuning dial is a reproduction. This actually came with the radio, and I suspect John Bachman had purchased this while he was working on it originally. Bob Anderson had expressed some disdain for this dial because it isn't like the original, but I found a company online that actually has a proper reproduction dial, and I might consider buying one. It's like $30-something, I think, for the dial, but it'll have a more natural orange glow to it. The knobs are all original Philco. These two were actually acquired by Bob when he did his work on the chassis. And they're the same style of knob that would have originally come on this radio. This is the band selector switch. You have, of course, your AM broadcast on the bottom, and then you've got your shortwave, which starts at 2.3, I believe that's millicycles, and goes all the way up to, on the second ring of the dial, or third ring, it goes all the way up to 22 millicycles. Of course, AM range is between 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 5, 50, 60, 70, 80. So that's 10 increments of 10 kilohertz. So it's probably 4, 5, 40, 530, 530 kilohertz all the way up to 1700 kilohertz. So the grill cloth, I found that on eBay. This is as close to the original as I could find. It was a solid color. It was nothing fancy. It was more of a gold appearance, and that's what I've been able to find. My very first application of grill cloth. It's not perfect, but it'll do. I reused as much of the original hardware as I could. Unfortunately, I was missing all the chassis mounting hardware, so I had to go out and I had to find some grommets for the chassis to rest on. One of my viewers pointed out a company called RenovatedRadios.com. And that's where I found all of my chassis mounting grommets. And I think that's where Bob Anderson got the grommets for the RF chassis. Remember, the 1937 and I believe 38 were the only 2 years that Philco separated the RF chassis from the main chassis. And that was to mimic some of the higher-end radios that were out at the time. There's a variety of reasons why they would have done that. But making them difficult to service was one of the side effects. So that's why this chassis was incredibly difficult to surface because of its construction. But luckily, Philco only did that for 2 years. You know, it's funny. This is one of the hardest radios you can ever get to restore. I mean, I'm sure Telefunken has some pretty difficult ones, but I'm sure they're very over-engineered. But for two reasons, this is a very difficult model to restore for a couple of reasons. Number one, the faux finish gives you that challenge right there off the bat. Generally, when you find these, in secondhand stores, flea markets, and swap meets, there's a lot of damage to the faux finish, which, unlike veneer, can't really be fixed unless you're an artist and you can draw it all back in. But in most cases, that's not practical. So just having the finish on this cabinet, restored, is a big deal. And it wasn't until VintageRadioLabels.com came out with their faux finish product that there was a cost-effective and foolproof way to restore the finish of the radio. But the other reason they're so difficult to restore is that the chassis is constructed in such a manner that makes disassembly incredibly difficult. And subsequently it makes diagnosis and repair difficult. So that really only the more advanced or experienced technicians can get these running again. Like I said before, I had Bob Anderson on my side, and he really went to bat and got it done. And I cannot thank him enough. But renovatedradios.com, that's where all these grommets can be found. I also bought 2 post grommets for the front of the chassis. And those are designed to protect the, or to prevent the chassis from hitting the face of the radio. I got fortunate on this project because all the labels are still intact, so I didn't have to worry about getting replicated labels. But I did have a little bit of damage to the speaker, which was easily fixed with Aleene's tacky glue. You might be wondering about the power cord. Well, according to Bob Anderson's research, the original power cord was a rubber cord. Not a plastic or vinyl cord, but an actual rubber cord. In the 1930s, they were experimenting with rubber wiring. And what they later found out is that the rubber wiring that they came up with was very quick to degrade and often is very unsafe to use. But modern equivalents look just like the original, and or as close as you're going to get without causing a fire, and are good enough for the projects that you'll be working on. The chassis wiring in this set was all cloth or cotton-clad gutta-percha wiring. It's basically bare wire that's been coated with gutta-percha, and then it was sleeved with a braided cloth. The speaker wiring was the last piece that had to be replaced, and it wasn't until I took the shrink tubing off that John had put on that I realized the extent of the damage. So I went out to a website called tubedepot.com. Now these guys specialize in the guitar amplifier restoration business, and that's really who they cater to. But fortunately, guitar amplifiers and antique radios were basically wired using the same components, same tubes, same wiring, same sockets. So they actually took care of me. They I paid for the for the wire, but they had what I needed, is what I mean to say. They had the colors I wanted, and they had the dimensions I wanted. Originally, I tried using 18 gauge, but it proved to be too thick. It wouldn't fit through these grommets. These are actually brass grommets on the chassis and on the radio wiring block cover. So I had to reorder my wire with, I went with 20 gauge. The smallest they have is 20 gauge, and this is how thick it is. It's still pretty thick, but it does the job. And I also was able to reuse all the original wiring lugs. I'm going to take this cover off and show you what that looks like. So here's the wiring block on the speaker itself, and I've actually numbered each wire with a numerical value, 1 through 4. And I'm going to actually take this wire and I'm going to try to straighten out the braiding. It's kind of messy. I don't really like the way it looks. But I'm going to just pull these pins out, hopefully without breaking anything. One, 2, 3, and 4. Now getting these, I know someone is going to ask me this, so I'm going to answer it anyway. These pins are reusable, and the trick I found is to hold the pin on the old wire or loom over an open flame. I used a torch lighter, like this Burnzomatic. I use that because it produces a clean, soot-free flame. Just hold that over the flame with a pair of pliers on the end, or on the shank of the pin, and just gently tug. Once the solder is melted, it'll come right off, and then you can slide it on the new wiring. Real easy to do. And you can see on the terminal block, I've written down each number for whichever wire goes where. I have to admit one thing that I'm not proud of. I ended up getting my field coil and my voice coil reversed, and it just created a loud humming noise, but I unplugged it quickly. Didn't do any damage to the chassis at all, or to any other components. To replicate the way these wires are bundled originally, I just applied some string to keep them bundled. And that's how they were originally. And there we go. All nice and tight. Kind of rebundled these wires, make them a little more uniformly twisted. And there we go. But that's it, man. It's done. Good to go. And no, it's not for sale. Never will be. I'm going to die with this thing in my possession. That's the intention. Anyway. And there you got it. The completed Philco 37640. Don't touch that dial. To ensure I get adequate reception out of this set, I've jerry-rigged a makeshift shortwave antenna that's just a single wire that kind of loops back and forth in my ceiling. And then it finally reaches the radio. I went out and bought some cabinets for my living room. These are actually from Target. They cost $170 retail a piece. I bought 2 of them. But I got them because they're a discontinued model. I got them for $118 a piece, which isn't too bad. I needed some nice furniture in here anyway, so it kind of worked out. I was going to stick it on top of a bookcase that was made of very thin fall-particle board, and well, I didn't want to risk having it collapse and destroy all my hard work. So this is what I came up with. They're nice too. They got these little glass doors, real wood trim, real wood legs. If you're looking for ready-to-assemble furniture, go to Target. They're the only place that has anything decent. Walmart just has compressed cardboard furniture. I shit you not. If you go into the Walmart furniture section and look at all the furniture they have on display, almost everything on display is already delaminating, and you can see that it's made from cellulose fibers rather than particle board or even real wood. It's kind of sad. And they charge almost as much as Target does for their furniture, which is actually pretty freaking nice stuff. This is a solid little cabinet. Anyway, let's see what we can get. Right now it's a rainy day. I'm not expecting much, but I'm going to start her off on the very beginning of the AM band. Then we're going to work our way up and see what we can get. Okay. Oh. Got some noisy electronics we need to shut down. Yeah, really. What it is, the control module for that overhead ceiling fan is extremely noisy, and electrically it's noisy, and it really causes some massive interference. So, let's see what we can get. Got something here. I'll turn the tone control up a little bit. I love how that tuning eye works. The shadow meter works really well. Not much through AM right now. Let's try shortwave. Now we'll start off at the beginning of the shortwave spectrum and then work our way through. That's our time channel.
transporte público en nuestro país.
The hell is that? That could be someone's vacuum cleaner or something.
Entre el varón y la mujer, especialmente cuando entran en este compromiso, yo leía en
Don't you? Oh, I'll tell you. I just pray that God will just take these words.
A lot of religious channels I'm finding.
Cambios en la alineación a partir de no estar bien Osvaldo Vázquez en su primer día, bueno, pone a Juan Alarcón y Juan Alarcón.
Claro, mide 6'2" y pesa 195 libras.
And regimes. And that's why they're somewhat resistant to the political correctness that they are.
Patience, perfection. Nothing are the results of trials.
Okay, then we're going to crank our way up to the top end of the shortwave spectrum. See what we can find.
Chinese are doing that yet. I think this is in fact something that the Chinese here. Of course it goes both ways. What the Americans can really look.
This one intrigues me. I don't know what I'm listening to. It sounds like backwards music. What the hell is this? No, I'm serious. This is kind of freaking me out. What is this? I hear someone moaning. Try to move around the room. Maybe touch the end of this. Maybe get it to come in a little better. It's kind of intriguing. It's like piano music. I don't know what to make of it. That's enough of that. And there you have it, folks. Thanks for watching.